Project S.A.R.A.H is here to really support families in the most intimate place in which no one really knows what's going on behind people's closed doors. And, if you're in a great family, then your family is a source of nourishment and support, a place to turn to when you're in trouble. But the cases that we see, the family's the opposite. Instead of being the place of nourishment, it's the place of most pain. And it drains the life out of the people who are victims.
Are you willing to tell me the name?
In the area of education, we have trained mikveh attendants, shul personnel, shelter staff in case they have a kosher Orthodox woman in the shelter, and people in community centers. We know that the key here is education. The more people know about us, the more they know that we're available in case there is some kind of a crisis. Our staff has grown and has trained in the area of domestic violence and sexual abuse. And the number of our staff has grown in response to the needs of the community. We have done a lot more work working with young couples pre and post marriage. We have 8 wonderful healthy relationship videos.
You're overreacting. Me, you, her, everyone.
Come on, Al-Islam, this situation is not unheard of.
Tell that to my mother. My own mother didn't believe me.
Sorry if I dumped you or whatever, but this is really none of your business. It is my business.
We have worked with young men and women in pre-dating situations in order to help them think about healthy relationships and how a relationship may turn unhealthy in some way. Can you guys tell me some safety rules that you have already in this classroom? Yes.
Project S.A.R.A.H brought the Aleinu program in from California a few years ago, and it's really been helping our prevention program really offshoot and really come into the community with a strong force of information.
That's right. You would call 911 on the telephone. Let's say it together, everyone. 911.
It teaches kids about everything. It teaches them about safety, about where they go, where they're looking, their bodies, exploring the internet safely. It really covers it in a very succinct and clear way. And we really wouldn't be able to do it without the community involvement.
In 2005, I was approached by S.A.R.A.H, who was a friend from shul, and she asked me if I would be interested in getting involved with Project S.A.R.A.H. Let people know where there's help available. I have since come to know how valuable it is for the community, how much support it gives families that are going through difficult times, so I agreed to become part of this wonderful organization as a volunteer. About 4 years ago, Project S.A.R.A.H expanded its reach and started to get involved in programs that would prepare young children to be able to offset any approaches that were made to them by predators, whether known or stranger. I was fascinated by this whole idea, and so I joined in and worked developing a 5th grade and a 6th grade program. These are close to launch, but not quite there yet, and we're hoping to launch them in the schools in the near future.
A person very close to me up in Rockland County was once hit by a stranger on a bus. At that time, I said, imagine this person is hitting a stranger on the bus over an unimportant issue. Imagine what's could be happening in his home, and suggested to look into organizations that are working with people in abusive situations as sort of a catharsis for the incident that happened. Pretty much simultaneous to that, I attended an event here in Englewood letting people know about this organization. It was in its early years, at least as far as I know. And I attended that event, and from that decided that I wanted to be involved. I've been involved in working on their breakfast, which is their major fundraiser. And this past year, I also did the training for the Aleinu program to educate children in the school systems about abuse. As a lay person, you don't need any particular skill set to volunteer for Project S.A.R.A.H. There are many things you could do, whether it's fundraising, whether it's volunteering in a shelter, whether it's education, and I would encourage people to volunteer for this organization.
had been to Israel and had coffee with a friend of mine who happens to be a social worker. And she told me she was working in a shelter in Harnof. I was absolutely shocked. I couldn't believe that there was such a need in Yerushalayim. I said, what are you doing? What do you mean a shelter? What is this all about? What is this for? And basically she told me women in crisis needed a safe house, women who might have been abused, who came from dysfunctional relationships, women who needed an escape. I said that if this problem exists in Yerushalayim, I'm sure this problem exists here, and we're unaware of it. We need to get started, and we need to get started here in North Jersey, and what are we going to do about this? From there, we founded a consortium, and we started meeting once a month under the leadership of S.A.R.A.H and the Jewish Family Service of Clifton, Passaic.
They understood that primarily what has to be done is we have to be educated to recognize the signs, and I think more than anything else to let rabbis know they cannot do it by themselves, and to let them know what services are available through other places and through other people and through experts in the field. Besides the fact that I had to get used to the idea that this is in our community, I had to get used to the fact that I would ask her if she's busy. She'd say, I'm going to a violence meeting, which got me frightened a little bit until I realized what she was saying. It's just so important to be aware of the situation, to be aware that this does exist. For years, this has been hidden under the carpet, behind the door. Nobody knows. It's our secret. And what we are doing here, unfortunately, what we have to do is to educate people that it does happen in our community, sometimes within homes that you would never imagine it happened. And we as a community, rabbinically, lay leadership as well, and simply common people, everyone, has to speak out with one voice that this will not be tolerated, this is not acceptable. And sometimes it includes even re-educating husbands and re-educating the family unit itself, how to get rid of this terrible cancer within a Jewish family.
Being involved in the domestic violence movement has been a privilege for me as an elected official, as a woman, as a mother, as a grandmother, to make it a lasting legacy that we are going to break this chain of violence. I was privileged to be in a position to help them get their first grant for anti-domestic violence issues, and to have a program that recognized the unique outreach that's needed for the women in the Jewish community, particularly women in the more traditional Jewish community, was a great step forward. This kind of behavior sometimes gets passed on through generations when young people grow up thinking that that is appropriate behavior that they see in their household. Project S.A.R.A.H has done a great deal to change the lives of women today and their children who will grow up in a safer and more nurturing environment and become the mothers and fathers of our future generations.
These problems are so pervasive and affect so many different dimensions of family life that the only way that you can really make an impact is if you're also approaching it from many different dimensions. If the spiritual leadership is involved, if the schools are involved, if the social service agencies are involved, and the other mental health supports are involved, and if every one of us is trained to be a resource so that if we encounter somebody who's having these difficulties and we can help them, then we can really make an impact. And that's the way Project S.A.R.A.H has been, thank God, been growing, and our impact has increased every year, and more people have been able to access and get help.